These definitions are not like set in stone, literally scripture to be taken like as a fundamentalist, femboyist, tomboyist, whatever way. It's a fairly loose definition. It's a spectrum. You can have some qualities that would make you labeled as a tomboy, but also have some other qualities that might contradict the label of tomboy. So let's say you're a tomboy in a variety of ways, but you also like being all done up and extremely hyper feminine and yada 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 at other times. Like, it's fine. It's chill. It's all good. So this is Professor Lando's Tomboys Explained. So if you've watched my channel for some time, you know that we watched the Femboys Explained video right here. And that one actually did really well. People really liked that one. It could be a combination of Professor Lando having a very large YouTube channel, also potentially being a very handsome gentleman that people like to see, someone that people like to look at for extended periods of time. It could be because I also, identified with the term femboy as well. So, my insight might be relevant. So now we got Tomboys Explained. And as I talked about in the previous video, when it came to the femboy question, there's some interesting things that go into the tomboy-femboy dynamic. And I'd be curious to see how Professor Lando goes into and explains that whole situation. So let's find out.
Tomboys.
Let's go.
Well, what is a tomboy?
Based.
And epic, and wholesome 100 Keanu Among Us build.
A tomboy is a girl who exhibits characteristics, behaviors that is considered typical of boys.
True. That's a decent definition, I would say. So I've also got a definition. Now, this is an updated definition from since we last went over this topic. There was some good criticism on it, so I wanted to make it a better definition. The new definition for femboy is an overall feminine person with some masculine traits, and they are usually, but not always, identifying as a man and or are assigned male at birth. So they could be cis, they could be trans, they can be whatever, but they're usually going to identify as men at the very least. And the opposite of that, I think, is true for tomboys. So tomboys then are still an overall feminine person with some masculine traits, characteristics, interests, yada yada yada, usually but not always identifying as a woman and or are assigned female at birth. That seems to be the take. A lot of people will be like, oh, what's the opposite of femboy? Is it tomboy? No, I don't actually think so. I think the opposite of femboy is masc girl, actually. And I describe this as an overall masculine person with some feminine traits that is usually but not always identifying as a woman and or assigned female at birth. And then the opposite of that would be tom girl. So still an overall masculine person, some feminine traits, usually but not always identifying as a man, and or are assigned male at birth. I think that is a fairly good, all-encompassing definition, kind of like describing how society perceives them and how society engages with these definitions. Like, this is the best thing I could think of. And because of this, there's actually a lot of interesting overlap between tomboys and femboys. But we'll get into that. But I think this is a fine definition. Should I be taking notes? Yes, and there will be a test at the end.
Dictionary.com has a slightly different definition. An energetic, sometimes boisterous girl whose behavior and pursuits, especially in games and sport, are considered more typical of boys than of girls. So generally, I think you can take away, like,
imagine to all my tomboys out there with ADHD, depression, and vitamin D deficiency. Energetic? Okay, that's a bit limiting, a little bit gatekeepy for me personally.
The mainstream understanding of a tomboy, it's a girl that's like a boy.
Yeah.
A boyish girl.
Sure.
Well, Professor Lando, that's what Wikipedia says. That's what Dictionary.com says. What does Professor Lando say about a tomboy? Well, I have a lot.
And that's the only, the only thing we should care about, really, like the authoritative source. Like, you can go to Wikipedia. You can go to the dictionary. You could go to the pearly gates of heaven and ask God himself, but you're not going to get the information that you need unless you're going to Professor Lando. And, it's a good thing you're here. It's a good thing I'm here to augment and perhaps give you a different perspective on the topic as well.
Trait number 1. Short hair.
Cringe. Now, typically, this is probably true, shorter hair. However, I think long hair tomboys are also based, but he'll probably say that.
Probably the main feature that is associated. We see...
Oh, and we should say, really quick, since I'm going to pause Lando a billion times while only having seen like 5 seconds of the video, when it comes to the definitions that I've given, and from what I can tell from the definitions and information delivered by Lando, these definitions are not like set in stone, literally scripture to be taken like as a fundamentalist, femboyist, tomboyist, whatever way. It's a fairly loose definition. It's a spectrum. You can have some qualities that would make you labeled as a tomboy, but also have some other qualities that might contradict the label of tomboy. So let's say you're a tomboy in a variety of ways, but you also like being all done up and extremely hyper feminine and yada 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 at other times. Like, it's fine. It's chill. It's all good. Now, I got a lot of pushback talking about, on a tweet thread specifically I made about it, that happened after the femboy video, about how, oh, well, this definition, it's booty cake, it's a stinky butthole Jones. Like, it's not good because what if the femboys are outside of the definition? It seems very limiting. Why are you gatekeeping? It's like, no, thank you very much for literally deciding to make something up to get mad at. I know that's what Twitter is for, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to describe how society engages with these definitions, these ideas.
People conflating a girl with short hair with tomboys very often.
True.
Short hair it's only a part of the puzzle.
True.
You see a character with short hair and you're like, tomboy. Slow down a little bit. Let's not jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
The next
Hold your horses. Take a chill pill. Just like, and I see this happen all the time. Which is why, by the way, I'm a big fan of defetishizing femininity wholesale, because anybody can be feminine, and the ways that feminine people are over-sexualized and fetishized, in my view, kind of bad thing, not very cool, not very PogChamp, kind of unwholesome, unpoggers, not Keanu Chungus, maybe not a good thing to have the fetishization of femininity be as bad as it is. So, like, I see a lot of the time that there will be, like, a vaguely feminine guy, right? Like, there's a person who identifies as a man and like they wear their hair longer and it's like, boom, that's a femboy right there. It's like, no, it's not. The reason why I have some kind of a problem with this is because, like I say all the time, like vaguely feminine guys will be called femboys whether they like it or not. Some people don't like the label, some people are indifferent, some people identify with it, but whether you like it or not, because of the memification of the term, because the term is essentially like a meme, you're like automatically a fucking uwu cum slut femboy subby guy. Like, that's not true. There are femboy tops out there. There's a whole fucking spectrum of behaviors and interests and identities for, you know, femboys in general. And the negative part of that comes with, oh, well, if there's a person who's like experimenting with their femininity a little bit, but they're not doing too much, so like they're growing their hair longer, maybe they're showing a little bit more leg, like they're wearing slightly shorter shorts than usual, and like they shave their legs. It's like all of a sudden that person's gonna be called a femboy whether they like it or not. And if they go online and see a lot of people, even very like socially progressive people, like just automatically, viciously over-sexualizing femboys in that way, they might be like, oh, wow, like I kind of want to investigate the fact that I seem to like being feminine more. But now that I see all this, if I do decide to keep going down that road, people might start talking about me or thinking about me in that way, and that makes me uncomfortable. So maybe I won't do it, actually. Maybe I'll not explore this part of me that if I actually did do the things and figure out more of it, might actually feel more confident, happier, or find out that you're not into it. But you'll never know if that kind of barrier happens. Like, people have told me, like, oh yeah, like I see this sexualization all the time and I don't like the idea of myself being sexualized, and it has made me think some type of way about it. It's just not good. I think that by and large, the fetishization of femininity needs to be undone in society because it'll help everybody. Helps women, helps feminine men, helps non-binary people. It helps your dad. Maybe, if, you know, he's got some ideas about that, you know, it's all good. It's a fun time. Dear liberals, let's say, hypothetically, that you claim to support femboys, tomboys, and all gender non-conforming aesthetics, then it would logically follow that you would be subscribed to the CONURE YouTube channel, the premier femboy on the internet. Some say the Pope of the femboys. Well, let me show you an inconvenient fact. 50% of the people watching this channel do not subscribe. That, frankly, is hypocrisy of the highest order. To be honest, it kind of hurts my feelings, and that's a fact. Checkmate, libtard. Hit the sub button, you fucking assholes. I really appreciate you all sticking around, having fun, enjoying the channel. Keep it up. Hit the sub button. All notifications on when hit the bell. I'd appreciate that as well. And continue to enjoy the video.
Characteristic, I believe, to make up a tomboy is attitude.
I would say personality, but the attitude is, you know, a nice synonym.
Boys are, especially in media, right? We're talking about anime, movies. They're a specific type of character. They are often calm, cool, collected, Or the blunt, like dictionary.com said, boisterous, like spunky type of person.
Kind of like me, right? Like the way that I talk, the way that I engage with people in my chat, especially people that disagree with me. Some people seem put off by that, but because I aesthetically look fairly feminine, I'm not as feminine as I want to be. But when it comes to like my personality, my voice, the way that I walk, all that shit I'm fine with. I like all of that. And I even do things to accentuate those things in a more masculine capacity because I like those masculine elements of myself. So, you know, it's interesting, the overlap between femboy and tomboy.
Spirit and guts, moxie and pluck. I think these two are generally like the tomboy archetypes.
I'm very much not weeb enough to to get the references that Lando's going to be dropping, but hey, that's fair enough.
Trait is interests.
Yep.
Interest in fitness, fighting, being a warrior, or maybe simply cross-dressing as a boy or male. Basically, interested in things normally associated with boys.
I would take a small amount of issue. I don't think it's a big problem with the cross-dressing idea. It's possible that some people might like literally cross-dress to like look a certain way and also consider themselves like identify with the term tomboy and whatnot. But I think for tomboys generally, what they're doing is not cross-dressing. So if we think about what cross-dressing is, it's essentially you identify, let's say, as a girl, you identify as a woman, but you are making the active choice, even though you wouldn't always be dressing this way, but you're making the active choice to now decide to dress like society assumes men to dress, how men dress. So throughout most of your like standard life, you're dressing like, essentially how society would expect women to dress. However, when you're cross-dressing, you're making the active decision to then dress like a man, simply stated. However, if you think about, let's say, trans men then, would we say that trans men are cross-dressers? Well, no, because they are all the time dressing as men. But the problem is that a lot of people that are kind of ignorant or even through malice will say that trans people are cross-dressing. The reason why that's problematic is what I've just said. Those people, so trans men identify as men, they are men, and therefore dressing like men is not cross-dressing because they're doing it all the time. If we go now to tomboys then, so these are people that are usually identifying as women, but most of the time they're dressing like a tomboy. Well, if they're doing it all the time, if it's not an active decision to kind of do the opposite of what they're normally doing when in terms of their aesthetics and dress, well then I don't think they're cross-dressing either. They're just, that's how they dress. So the difference is somebody isn't cross-dressing if they're always dressing that way. They're just dressing. Call me ranch. But if they're cross-dressing, well, then they're dressing a lot differently, the opposite way. And then that makes them engaging in cross-dressing, okay? So that, a minor semantic critique there, not a big deal. Feeling like the clothes I wore automatically invalidated my identity as a non-binary trans person was really hard to break out of. And I still fall victim to that kind of thinking from time to time. Yeah, and hopefully into the future, now that, you know, people more and more are understanding that clothes are literally just clothes, they might accentuate some features that are seen to be more masculine or feminine respectively, but they're just clothes and literally anybody can wear them. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Damn. Got a lot more to go.
Mr. Lando's tomboy equilibrium model. What is it? Well,
equilibrium
the
model.
what ifs and make it or break it cases of tomboyishness comes down to the relationship of those traits, but ultimately certain qualities. Being a tomboy is a delicate balance between cool and cute. Tomboys are cool and cute. They can't be cool and not cute. They can't be cute and not cool.
Is this true? Well, I guess it depends on how you define cute. It's a very subjective term. I think I understand what he means, though. So, like, the idea here is that if you look at a man, right, like a very masculine man, most people are not going to call that person cute. Now, you might personally find them cute, but we're using cute in the definition of like, ooh, soft, cute. You know what I mean? That's the kind of definition we're using here. Not the, oh, I find that person to be cute kind of definition where that's kind of like a subjective take. And the same for cool then there. I think those are the definitions we're working with now, which is, you know, it's a way to try to explain it, but I don't know that it's necessarily the best. I mean, it's a work in progress, I'm sure.
There's a balance. On this side, you have cool.
This is Professor Lando's gender binary. Yeah, the two genders, cool and cute.
In this side, you have cute. Somewhere along this spectrum, you have a tomboy. And cool and cute are both contributing to the essence of this tomboyishness And yes, being the tomboy, you can go back and forth on the spectrum to varying degrees. There are some tomboys that pull more to cool. There are some tomboys that pull more towards cute. You know, life is not a binary, shades of gray, yada, yada.
So I think the better definitions would be, rather than cool and cute, at least for what I've provided, would be that cute, you could say like soft and gruff or abrasive. Rough might be better. Yeah, so soft or rough might be better for this. So soft for cute, rough for cool. Those might be better, mostly because cute as a word has multiple different uses, right? Especially when in the context of this conversation. So people will look at cute as in the one way, like I said before, oh, I find that person to be cute, meaning essentially that person's aesthetics I find to be interesting and attractive, essentially. Or it could be cute as in a cute ooh-woo, pastel pinks kind of vibe. You know what I mean? So, and that's why I don't think it's the best word. I get what you're going for here, Lando. I get it. I understand.
But if you start to pull too far from one side, you'll break this link, and I believe that no longer becomes a tomboy. That's just a cool girl.
So in this way, a masc girl, a masculine girl. Brash might have been the word, yeah, Dean. I think at that point, yeah, if you go too far from the soft aspects of what people expect from femininity, and you go more into the masculinity or the cool, you could literally just use masculine or feminine as well, by the way. Then yeah, they end up being like a masc girl, which would be the opposite of a femboy. You know what I mean?
Likewise, on the other end of the spectrum, if you pull too close to cute, you'll break this chain, and you just have a cute girl. There needs to be a balance between cool and cute to make a tomboy. I guess you could really call it like, there's this amorphous zone right here. This is the Goldilocks zone of tomboyishness. Hot versus sexy. In Professor Lando's tomboy equilibrium model, tomboys are hot, but not sexy.
So like this is still, so these are bad words to use because the definitions vary and are very subjective. That being said, the definitions for what I provided, like rough versus soft, are also subjective and also masculine and feminine. But I mean, if we want to get into gender abolitionist theory, yeah, I don't think we're really here for that right now. So you have to operate off of societal expectation, not your ideal form of what you want the world to be like. You know what I mean? Yeah, because like some people would think that, well, hot and sexy, they're literally the same thing. So I just think they're not the greatest words to use, but we'll see how he describes it, because if you could find better words, the idea might still work.
When I saw them, I thought to myself, that character is more, it's more like a vixen, you know, like a babe. Do we know who this is?
No.
Winry, rockbell.
Oh, I do! I've actually seen this anime, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's a good anime.
Automail girl, yes.
Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist.
It's from Full Metal Alchemist. Do you think this is a tomboy? In my opinion, I think Winry Rockbell from Full Metal Alchemist is not a tomboy.
Oh!
He has the attitude and personality, right?
Is this true?
Like,
I wish I knew more. I don't remember a whole lot. Wait, let me see. Is this fine to look up? Am I going to get some crazy shit? No, we're good. From what I can remember, without scrolling too far, I think that's fair enough, yeah. Overall, she seems to be more feminine. She just has a very mild, you know, more masculine, quote-unquote, interest because she's an engineer. And that's seen as a thing for boys. That's seen as a masculine thing, you know what I mean? But, like, overall, she's not a tomboy because she's overall feminine. It's fair enough.
Spunky, right? Kind of spunky, a little boisterous, and has the interest, right? A boyish interest of, you know, she's a mechanic. Right? It's kind of associated with like being a rough, like masculine, kind of rough.
Working with your hands, getting dirty.
A sort of point system mentally. The long hair is associated with sexiness. We talked about cute versus cool. Winry in general, very cute, but I believe she lacks coolness. Just being a mechanic is not necessarily automatically cool. I believe there are a certain amount of points of coolness to being a mechanic.
So he's talking about the previous chart. The problem is he hasn't defined what he means by cool or cute. You know what I mean? That's the issue. That's where the discrepancy and the potential disagreement or misunderstanding comes from.
Points as something like being like a fighter, right? Or being like a weightlifter. Overall, Winry has too high of a cute stat and not enough cool points.
So we're gatekeeping tomboys now, huh, Professor Lando? Kind of problematic, sweaty. Just kidding.
Like Winry, when you watch the show, she's spunky. She's a mechanic, but she's just too cute, too cutesy. I don't really feel that coolness, that boyishness of her.
So like using femininity and masculinity instead is just the better word to use.
Mainstream discussion of tomboys and femboys, they're often put in the same sphere.
Are they really? I always hear that, tomboys are the opposite of femboys. Anytime I ask people, like, what's the opposite of a femboy? They're always saying tomboys, which I don't think is actually true. I think the opposite of a femboy is a masc girl, whereas femboys and tomboys are two sides of the same coin. Let's see.
Viewed in the same level of thing, of concept. We talk about like femboy Hooters, tomboy Outback Steakhouse.
Of course. I think it's in the literature. Like if you read the studies, if you looked at the theory, it's in there.
This is a false comparison. This is not a correct comparison to make. I think people think femboys and tomboys are opposite sides of the spectrum. But I don't think so.
Yes, Professor Lando. Lando on point, my man.
We're going to use some examples. When we talk about femboys, especially like how they're perceived in pop culture, mainstream culture right now, I want to say like when a male is dressed up feminine, maybe with a skirt, maybe they're wearing thigh highs, maybe a choker, I don't know.
I would never do this.
I'm just throwing stuff out there. I think most people would be like, oh, that's a femboy. Like Astolfo from Fate Grand Order, Felix from ReZero, Venti from Genshin Impact, Clover Cookie from Cookie Run Kingdom.
Wait, Clover Cookie from Cookie Run Kingdom. What is that? I've never heard of this. Clover Cookie Run Kingdom. Oh, this is kind of cool. So this is a person who identifies as a man. This is a man. That's kind of neat. So I imagine this is the actual character art. Or maybe maybe both of these are official? It's kind of pog. Okay. That being said, I don't know. This character design kind of looks more Tom girl to me, though maybe I don't know enough because I haven't played the game. Because like the hair is short is one of the major things I can think of. If we look at the clothes that's being worn, is that a dress or are those like pantaloons? I think that's a dress. Like I don't know. I see this and I don't think femboy. Like the dimensions of the face, it screams like a little bit more masc. Especially you'd have to look at the personality as well. I don't know. It's interesting. Like I say, there's a lot of weird shit going on. So it's hard to figure out.
Femboys, they vary widely in their personalities and the type of character.
Yeah, I need more context.
Person they are. And I think most people would be like, yes, that's a femboy. Femboys is not the same as tomboys because when you look at tomboys, their personalities, it's more of the same thing. It's more of this certain kind of character archetype, these more narrow type of traits.
So like the reason for this, by the way, in my view, and I've talked about this before, is because the term femboy is a newer term. I think it was first used in like 1990s, and it was a derogatory term at the time. However, tomboy dates back decades. The term tomboy has been around for a long time, and because of that, societal perception of the term has become more solidified around a certain like archetype of a person, like Lando suggests. Whereas the term femboy is a couple decades old and only really became very prominent within like the last decade. There's going to be a wider range there and less of an understood expectation for femboys. But I think that tomboy being defined so rigidly and also femboy being defined so rigidly is not that great, because then you start applying certain characteristics to people that they might not have, and especially in regards to the fetishization of femininity and the sexualization of femboys and all the kind of shit that I talk about and fight against, it's not that great. That's like the brief understanding, I think, of why that's the case.
You might be asking, Professor Lando, you're saying a lot of things aren't tomboys. Well, what is a tomboy?
So before we get into this is what's really interesting about me, personally, as a human being. So if you look at me, and if you're watching me, then you probably have looked at me at least once. But here we could look at this really quickly. Well, here's my cat, a raw chicken that we are cooking, finally. But also, I recently posted a bunch of selfies, 2 of them to be exact. And if you look at me, and obviously, I'm dressed the way I am right now, I'm wearing fishnets and Converse right now. So, like, if you look at me, depending on what I'm wearing especially, you immediately think, oh, well, this person, I don't identify as a man, but I'm AMAB, as assigned male at birth. But anyway, people will be like, oh, that's a femboy. Immediately, right? On that understanding of my identity seeming to correlate with men, right? So, like, maybe this isn't the best example. If you look at this one then, well, here I'm just wearing these black joggers, and then I'm wearing a t-shirt and I have a beanie on. If I identified as a woman and you saw this and you knew that, you might call me a tomboy, right? Especially if you heard me, like, if I had like this kind of a deeper voice, maybe it was more feminine, and like the way that I act, the way that I'm like loud, abrasive, rude, and whatnot, you might just call me a tomboy, like, oh, that's a tomboy, right? But because you understand me to be assigned male at birth, I'm called a femboy instead, which is interesting because like there's no way for you to know. It's very interesting. So like that's a very clear example using selfies of me, the creator you enjoy watching, to explain how the terms tomboy and femboy are two sides of the same coin, but you know, different enough to be either of the two sides, right? Though I will say tomboy is heads and femboy is tails. I will say that. So that being said, because I'm non-binary, because my gender identity is an amorphous blob and I don't care about it at all, I could be considered agender. I just like the term non-binary because I think the term NB is cute. Then theoretically, if I'm agender or all genders at once even, I could identify as a woman. Like I might one day, you never know. I might go back to identifying as a man, right? You don't know. But at that point, if I'm a trans woman now, but I'm dressing like this, then I would be considered a tomboy. But because I am AMAB, you'll see it if you know that. And now I'm kind of looking like a tomboy, but I'm a femboy. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's interesting. Very strange.
Mikasa Ackerman from Attack on Titan, I believe, is a true, honest-to-goodness tomboy. We have the cool factor, a strong fighter, calm and collected, a seriousness about her, but also passionate. And because of her bluntness and her attitude, often leads her to coming across as very cute at times, right? Leaves her open to vulnerability due to her seriousness, usual demeanor. Comes across as very cute. For
me, I've watched Attack on Titan except for I think the most recent 2 seasons. I'm trying to remember if this is accurate or not. Is anybody in the chat a Mikasa Ackerman PhD holder where you've gone to college and learned all about this character? I don't see how you can differentiate Mikasa and Winry. I was looking at the comments a little bit ago before we started watching the video, and that's, you know, people were having disagreements here.
She also has abs and is very fit. We're getting that interests, right? She's a fighter, she's a warrior. You understand Mikasa Ackerman to be like a very strong character. Cherry on top also just has short hair. And again, because of the combination of like the coolness, I think overall, like if I was to say like, do I think Mikasa is hot or sexy? Like, yeah, she could be minutely or to some degree sexy.
So once again, we're talking about the spectrum before, which has specific definitions that unfortunately he didn't get into.
I think her hotness value, like I think she's way hotter than she is like sexy. And you know, again, as a reminder, like when I say sexy, what am I talking about? Like I'm talking about like, you know, bodacious, like a vixen, a babe. I think Mikasa is not really that. I wouldn't really say like, oh, she's such a babe, she's so sexy. It's more like, oh, she's so hot.
Oh shit, I actually took some selfies recently that are very tomboy-esque while still being fairly feminine. Hey, let me see if I can find one. Because like the fact that I like oscillate between tomboy and femboy, I think is really displayed in a lot of the outfits that I wear. So like you have this where like, I feel like this is a fairly tomboy outfit. I feel like that makes sense. But like so like it's just an oversized t-shirt, but I have these carved up tights and I'm wearing Converse and I have my ear poking out of my hair, but I still have longer hair and I've got like this chain on. But I have some selfies without the tights on, which kind of like really drive the point home. I love this selfie too. This is a really good one. I feel very actualized about this one. Like this, especially with the sneakers in view. Like I feel like this is fairly tomboy. It's still pretty femme, but I think it's leaning more towards tomboy, which is interesting, right? Like it's interesting to think about. Also, if you're watching this video or this live stream, you've now seen those selfies leaked because those will become selfie posts in the future. So stay tuned. You got here on the ground floor, though maybe not those ones necessarily. We'll see. So you might have even seen some exclusives.
Short hair being very, very, very commonly associated with tomboys. I think there's another trait that's often strongly associated with tomboys. Fit chicks or muscular girls.
Let's go. And also musky girls. My DMs are open.
In analyzing muscular girls and why we like them so much, fit chicks, I'd like to present figure A.
The classic.
TikTok influencer, fitness influencer, lean beef patty.
I'm
We're going to
dead.
be analyzing this figure A.
I am in the
We're
grave.
going to break down like why. Why do we like fit chicks? Point one, the abs. When I look at these abs,
Get some buffs in the
I
chat.
just get the desire to like want to have my face like shaved down against
Like a
those
cheese
steel
grater.
grates. Like I was being dragged against the asphalt, hanging off of like a speeding car, and like I would want that until my face was left looking like a shredded stick of string cheese. So
I have never related to Professor Lando more.
that is abs, and two, thighs. And when we look at the thighs, what do we think? You know, the thighs.
It's the more muscular ones, right? It's kind of like my thighs. My thighs are fairly muscular, but they're not too muscular, right? Like if you get more and more muscular with it, then now you become like a muscle girl, right? But if you've got like a little bit of tone or none at all, then you're more feminine, right? Because for some reason, muscle definition is seen to be less feminine, which is cringe in my opinion.
Thighs are the location of where I would like to have my head crushed.
Like a watermelon.
Like a watermelon,
Yeah,
of course,
like a
or
watermelon.
any fruit.
Like, speaking of, give me a second. Our favorite. There it is. Well, whatever. I'll just show you the screenshot. Here's Hasanabi, everybody's favorite tomboy, crushing a watermelon, and also posting feet for free. I'm keeping those stinky little piggies off my screen. I'm sorry. I'm anti-feet. For those of you who don't know the context and are kind of questioning, why the hell is Hassan breaking a watermelon with his thighs and showing feet for free? And to give you some more insight, if you might be confused, I'm not going to tell you. Anyway.
And I want my head to be crushed until my skull cracks and my brain matter is just splattered against the fucking floor. And the last thought that the neurons of my brain are processing before the gray matter gets splattered everywhere, the last thing that they're processing is just like the sheer amounts of like dopamine and serotonin that is just coming out of my head. And the third is the look she's giving us. Like, notice how she's looking down at you. You're scum. You're scum. You're nothing. And she knows it.
Do you really think that was her intent? Or are you just kind of like self-inserting what you want it to be?
And that's exactly what I like.
That's a good video. And I think I was able to be a little bit more informative, help, clear up some confusion, kind of give you my perspective and how I engage with these labels. For future notice, I'm fine with the term femboy. Obviously, I have my gripes with it, but I'm fine with it being used for me. I'm also fine with the term tomboy. Because I use any and all pronouns. You could call me she or he or they or literally whatever else, but those are the most common three. At that point, theoretically, given the correct context, maybe the outfit I'm wearing or whatever, you could also call me a tomboy and it would still be valid. Like, I am simultaneously a femboy, but also a tomboy, because they're two sides of the same coin. And if you were having difficulty figuring that out, well, now you have me here, literally a living example. So I hope you had fun, I hope you had a good time, and now get out of my sight. This video is CALLOUT as Iron Mage for the 4th time, previously winning in December, November, and August of 2021. Now 5 months later, they've got their 4th win. Really appreciate that. I don't know why I said that weirdly. For the continued support and activity in my live stream chats. Very cool, very nice, very fun. If you would like to be the next CONURE callout, all you gotta do is follow me on Twitter at CONURECC, retweet my links when they go live. Remember to subscribe to the channel, put all notifications on and hit the bell. Would appreciate that as well. Make sure you never miss a video, you stupid fucking cool person. I really appreciate it. Make sure to leave a like if you'd like, and also comment something super cool about tomboys, femboys, masc girls, tom girls, whatever it is, and have a fantastic rest of your time, really.